Reba sat on her porch, the Oscar still on the mantel, the sun setting once again. Elias sat next to her, his hand in hers. "You did good, Reba," he said. "We did good, Elias." Inside, the noise was starting up again. Van was pitching a tactical retirement home idea, and Sarah was teaching her tactical turtle how to guard the fridge. The hurricane hadn't ended. It never would. But Reba Hart knew that she wasn't just surviving it anymore. She was the one who controlled the wind. "Dinner's in 10 minutes," she yelled into the house. "And if anyone brings a drone to the table, I'm calling the Jablonskis." The laughter that rang out was loud, messy, and perfect. Chapter 14. Tactical Teens and Tequila. 5 years passed with the speed of a runaway freight train. The tactical diaper empire had expanded into tactical toddler gear, and Van was now obsessing over his latest invention, the tactical teen tracker. "It's not a GPS, Reba. It's a reconnaissance tool," Van shouted, holding up a sleek, black watch that looked like it belonged on a stealth pilot. "It monitors heart rate, location, and most importantly detects the frequency of eye rolling." Reba looked at Sarah, who was now 13, and currently wearing more black eyeliner than a raccoon. Sarah didn't even look up from her phone. She just let out an eye roll so powerful it practically generated its own gravity. "Frequency detected," Van yelled, pointing at the watch. "See? This is a breakthrough." "Van, she's 13. The only thing you need to track is how many times she calls us cringe in an hour," Reba said, pouring a very generous glass of tequila. Life had shifted. The house was quieter in some ways, and infinitely louder in others. Kira was on tour with Velvet Chainsaw, opening for major rock acts, and the garage was now a shrine to high-end power tools and Elias's carpentry projects. But the biggest shift was sitting right next to Reba on the porch. Elias had become the heartbeat of the home, the calm rhythm that kept the chaos from spiraling. "You thinking about it?" Elias asked, taking a sip of his beer. "Thinking about what?" "The big I do." Van's already designed a tactical tuxedo with a built-in flask and a holster for the wedding rings. Reba laughed, the sound warm and deep. "A tactical wedding. God help us all." Chapter 15. The Vesper Avenue Engagement. The proposal didn't happen on a mountaintop or in a fancy restaurant. It happened in the middle of a literal storm. A tropical depression was rolling through Houston, and the wind was whipping the oak trees into a frenzy. The power had gone out. Van was in the basement with a headlamp, trying to deploy the emergency diaper rationing system, and Sarah was complaining that her phone was at 4%. Reba and Elias were on the porch, watching the rain hammer the street. "Reba," Elias said, his voice steady even as the thunder rolled. "I've fixed your roof, your sink, and your porch steps. I've survived Van's inventions and Sarah's teenage angst. I think I'm ready for the permanent contract." He didn't have a ring box. He had a small, hand-carved wooden box he'd made himself. Inside was a simple gold band. "I don't need a hurricane to know you're the center of my world," he said. Reba looked at him, then at her house, then at the storm. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was holding her breath. She felt like she could finally breathe. "Yes," she whispered, "but on one condition." "What's that?" "Van is not allowed to use a drone to deliver the flowers." "I'll do my best, Reba." "But you know, Van," the scream from the basement. "The emergency rations are secure," was the only answer they needed. Chapter 16. The Tactical Wedding of the Century. The wedding day arrived with the typical Houston heat and a 40% chance of chaos. The backyard on Vesper Avenue had been transformed. Elias had built a beautiful cedar archway, draped in jasmine and white roses. Kira's band was set up on a small stage, ready to play a heavy metal version of Here Comes the Bride. Van, true to form, was wearing his tactical tuxedo. "Reba, check it out. The lapels are made of puncture-resistant Kevlar, and the boutonniere is actually a disguised walkie-talkie." "Van, if you broadcast the I do's to the local police scanner, I will kill you," Reba warned, though she was smiling. Sarah was the maid of honor, looking surprisingly elegant in a dark purple dress, though she still had her tactical turtle patch pinned secretly to the inside of her sleeve. Even Brock and Barbara Jean made an appearance, flying in from Florida. Barbara Jean was wearing a dress made entirely of sustainable hemp and insisted on giving Reba a prenuptial aura cleansing. "I sense so much stability, Reba," Barbara Jean chirped. "It's almost boring, in a good way." "Thanks, Barbara Jean. I was going for boring after 20 years of insane." As Reba walked down the aisle, or rather, the stone path Elias had laid himself, she saw the Oscar on the mantel through the open window. She saw the drawings on the wall. She saw the faces of the people who had stayed, and even the ones who had left and come back. She reached the archway and took Elias's hands. "In the eye of the hurricane," she said, repeating the vow they had written together. "I found my anchor." The ceremony was perfect until the very end, when Van's tactical ring delivery drone malfunctioned and started hovering aggressively over the guests, but nobody cared. They just laughed. Chapter 17. The Fullest Circle. As the sun set over the reception, the music changed from rock to a slow southern blues. Reba danced with Elias, her head resting on his shoulder. She looked around at her family. Van was teaching Brock how to use the tactical teen tracker. Kira was signing an autograph for a neighbor's kid. Sarah was actually smiling, talking to a boy from school who looked terrified of her. The life she had built wasn't the smooth sailing she had dreamed of as a young girl. It was better. It was a life forged in the fire of heartbreak and the chaos of diapers, rock music, and tactical gear. She realized then that the hurricane wasn't something to be feared. The hurricane was life itself, loud, unpredictable, and powerful. And the eye wasn't a place of stillness, but a place of strength. "You okay?" Elias whispered. Reba took a sip of her iced tea, spiked with a little celebratory champagne this time, and looked out at Vesper Avenue. "I'm exactly where I'm meant to be," she said. "Dinner's ready," Van shouted, his voice cracking with emotion. "And per the command council's orders, there is no tactical food, just brisket and love." Reba smiled, grabbed Elias's hand, and walked into the house to join the beautiful, never-ending storm. The End. The Eye of the Hurricane. A novel by Gemini. Chapter 1. The Humidity of Heartbreak. The Houston air didn't just sit, it pressed. It was a wet, heavy wool blanket that smelled of scorched asphalt and blooming jasmine. For Reba Hart, that humidity had always been the physical manifestation of her life. Suffocating, inescapable, but somehow, home. She stood in her kitchen on Vesper Avenue, staring at a half-empty box of cereal. Her reflection in the stainless steel toaster showed a woman who was holding it together by a single, fraying thread. Brock was gone. Not just at the office gone, but starting a second family with a woman who thought yoga was a personality trait gone. "Smooth sailing," Reba whispered to the empty room. But the universe had other plans. The front door slammed, and the storm didn't just walk in, it tripped over its own feet. "Reba, you won't believe it." Van Montgomery, her son-in-law, and the human equivalent of a golden retriever with a concussion, skidded into the kitchen. "I've had a vision, an epiphany, $1 million idea." Reba didn't look up. "If it involves training squirrels to do the laundry again, Van, the answer is no. I'm still finding acorns in my delicates." No, Van panted, leaning against the island. "Diapers, but for men, tactical men, men who want to change a diaper and feel like they're defusing a bomb in an action movie." Reba finally looked at him. She saw the sweat on his brow and the earnest, terrifying fire in his eyes. Behind him, her daughter Kira wandered in, headphones around her neck, looking like she wanted to set the house on fire, just for the aesthetic. The hurricane was forming. Reba could feel the atmospheric pressure dropping. She took a sip of lukewarm coffee and braced herself. Chapter 2. The Tactical Pivot. The months that followed were a blur of chaos and Kevlar. While Brock and Barbara Jean were busy finding their chakras in a local community center, Reba and Van were in the garage, surrounded by prototypes. The idea was absurd. The command commode, a diaper bag that looked like a paratrooper's kit, featuring molly webbing, matte black hardware, and tactical diapers with camouflage prints. Van handled the vision, which mostly involved shouting "extreme" at random intervals, and Reba handled the reality. Van, we can't put a bayonet lug on a diaper bag, Reba said, rubbing her temples. But what if there's a rogue toddler, Reba? High-stakes parenting requires high-stakes gear. Amidst the business chaos, the drama of Vesper Avenue boiled over. Brock was constantly dropping by to share his newfound wisdom, usually accompanied by Barbara Jean, who insisted on cleansing Reba's house with sage. I feel a lot of stagnant energy in the foyer, Reba, Barbara Jean chirped, waving a smoking bundle of herbs. It's blocking your abundance. The only thing blocking my abundance is the two of you standing in my doorway, Reba snapped. If you don't get that burning weed out of my house, I'm going to use it to light your yoga mats on fire. But beneath the snark, Reba was hurting. Then came the Hollywood call. Chapter 3. Lights, Camera, Chaos. It started as a local news segment on the mom-and-pop shop taking on the baby industry. It ended with a documentary film crew living in the guest room,